The first time Clara Bennett refused the future wife of a mafia boss, the entire bank went silent. It happened at 317 on a gray Seattle afternoon, when rain crawled down the glass walls of Harbor Crown Bank, like the city itself was trying to erase what was about to happen. Clara stood behind teller window 6, with her hands resting on the keyboard, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. Across from her, a woman in a white designer coat leaned forward with a smile that looked expensive enough to be sharpened. "Approve it," the woman said. Her voice was soft, polished, and poisonous. Clara glanced at the transfer form again. The amount was $750,000. The account was tied to DeLuca Holdings. The authorization seal appeared correct. The digital signature matched, but the transfer code did not. Clara had seen wire codes for property purchases, private security retainers, offshore payments, charitable trust disbursements, and legal settlements. This one was different. It was buried inside the transaction notes, disguised as a business tag. But Clara's stomach tightened the moment she saw it. Muy, Jean? A death payment code. Not official. Not written in any bank policy manual. Not something ordinary customers would ever recognize. But Clara had worked long enough in private banking to know that certain clients use certain codes when they did not want a transaction to look like blood money. Her fingers hovered over the approval key. On the screen, beside the beneficiary line, was a name that made even the security guard stand straighter whenever he walked into the building. Matteo DeLuca, the feared, silent king of Seattle's underworld. And this transfer was not going from him. It was going to someone being paid to kill him. "I'm sorry," Clara said, her voice quiet but steady. "I can process this transaction." The woman's smile disappeared. Around them, keyboards slowed. A manager looked up from his desk. 2 customers turned their heads. The woman placed one diamond-covered hand flat on the marble counter. "Do you know who I am?" Clara swallowed. "Yes. Then you understand how embarrassing this is for you." Clara felt heat rise up her neck, but she did not look away. That was something her mother had taught her years ago. When Clara was still a girl who cried too easily, "People can make you feel small, sweetheart, but don't hand them the ruler." "I understand the transfer requires review," Clara said. The woman laughed. It was not loud. That somehow made it worse. "Oh, this is adorable." She turned slightly, letting the entire bank hear her. "Matteo warned me Seattle was full of small people pretending to have power, but I didn't realize he meant literally." A few people looked down. Clara felt the old sting, the one that had followed her since school hallways. Family weddings, crowded elevators, every place where someone looked at her body before they listened to her voice. The white coat leaned closer. "What's your name?" "Clara Bennett." "Clara Bennett," she repeated, savoring it like an insult. "Do you know what men like Matteo do to women like you when you embarrass them?" Clara's stomach turned cold. The front doors of Harbor Crown Bank opened. A gust of rain-cooled air swept across the marble floor. Every sound vanished. 4 men entered first, dressed in black suits, their faces calm in a way that felt more dangerous than anger. Behind them came a man in a charcoal overcoat, his dark hair damp from rain, his jaw clean-shaven, his eyes so still they seemed carved out of winter. Matteo DeLuca did not rush. He never had to. The world moved out of his way. Clara had seen him only twice before, always from behind glass, always surrounded by silence. He was not the loud kind of powerful. He did not need to raise his voice or flash a weapon. His presence did what violence usually did. It made people remember their own mortality. Vivian Sorrento, its entire face changed. The cruelty vanished. In its place came softness, romance, performance. Matteo. She breathed, turning from Clara as if the humiliation had been nothing more than a cute little misunderstanding. Thank God you were here. Your teller is confused. Matteo stopped behind her. His gaze moved from Vivienne to Clara. Clara's pulse stumbled. Not because he was handsome, though he was, in a dark and ruinous way. Not because he was feared, though fear filled the bank like smoke. It was because he looked at her as if he could hear every lie in the room before anyone spoke. What happened, he asked. Vivienne reached for his arm. She refused our transfer. I think she got nervous, maybe overwhelmed. Some people just aren't meant for private accounts. Clara's manager appeared beside her so quickly he almost slipped. Mr. DeLuca, he said, pale with panic. I apologize. Clara must have misunderstood something. We can approve the transfer immediately. Clara's hand tightened on the mouse. She knew what would happen if she stayed silent. The money would move. A man would die. Maybe the man standing in front of her. Maybe someone else connected to him. Maybe a chain of people she would never know. And everyone would say later that Clara Bennett had only done her job. She looked at Matteo DeLuca, at the woman smiling beside him, at the screen glowing between them like a loaded gun. Then Clara turned the monitor slowly toward him. Her voice came out soft. But this time, the whole bank heard it. Sir, she said, this transfer is paying someone to kill you. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Rain tapped the windows. Vivienne's hand slid away from Matteo's sleeve. One of his bodyguards reached inside his jacket. Matteo lifted 2 fingers. The bodyguard stopped. Matteo's eyes remained on the screen. Clara watched the numbers reflect faintly across his face. Watched him, read the code. Watched something colder than rage settle behind his expression. Then he looked at Clara. Who else saw this? No one, she said. Her manager made a strangled noise. Mr. DeLuca, I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Matteo did not look away from Clara. Did you approve it? No. Why? Clara blinked. Because it was wrong. The answer seemed too simple for a man like him. But for the first time since he entered, something changed in Matteo DeLuca's eyes. Not warmth. Not trust. Interest. Vivienne laughed once. Too sharp. Matteo, you can possibly believe this woman. She's clearly trying to create drama. Look at her. Clara felt the words hit before she could stop them. Look at her. The same phrase, always the same knife in a different hand. Matteo turned his head slowly toward his fiancée. I am looking, he said. Vivienne's smile flickered. The bank remained frozen. All polished marble and trapped breath. Matteo stepped closer to the teller window. Clara should have stepped back. Every instinct told her to put distance between herself and that kind of danger. But her legs refused to move. He leaned slightly toward the screen, close enough for her to smell rain. Leather. An expensive cologne. What is the destination account, he asked. Clara hesitated. If she answered, she crossed a line. If she didn't, she might not survive the hour. Matteo noticed the hesitation. His gaze dropped briefly to her hands, still pressed together on the counter. You were afraid of me, he said quietly. Clara forced herself to breathe. Yes. The honesty pulled a faint reaction from him. Not a smile. Something darker. Almost respect. Good, he said. Fear keeps people alive. Vivienne's voice turned icy. Matteo, this is ridiculous. He ignored her. Clara clicked through the transfer data and lowered her voice. The money goes to a shell account in Tacoma. From there, it splits into 3 smaller transfers. One of them is flagged internally from a past investigation. What investigation? A private security contractor. Officially closed. Unofficially, she looked at Vivian, connected to contract killings. Vivian's face turned white beneath her perfect makeup. Matteo saw it. So did Clara. And in that tiny shift, everything became real. This was not a mistake. This was betrayal wearing diamonds. Matteo straightened. "Lock the bank," he said. The nearest bodyguard moved instantly. The security guards did not argue. The front doors clicked shut. The customers began whispering. Panicked, but too afraid to shout, Vivian stepped back. "You would humiliate me here, in public?" Matteo's expression did not change. "You chose the stage." Her eyes flashed. "You need me." "No," he said. "My enemies need you." The words landed like a slap. Clara stood behind the counter, barely breathing, as the woman who had mocked her moments ago began to tremble. Then Vivian's gaze snapped to Clara. The hatred in it was so naked, Clara felt it like fingers around her throat. "You stupid little teller," Vivian whispered. "You have no idea what you just ruined." Matteo turned his head. The room darkened without the lights changing. "Speak to her again," he said, "and I'll forget there are witnesses." Nobody doubted him. Not even Clara. Especially not Clara. That was the moment her life split in two. Before Matteo De Luca looked at her like she had saved him. And after, Clara Bennett had never wanted to be brave. Brave people got noticed. Brave people became stories. Brave people ended up whispered about in church basements and police stations and hospital waiting rooms. Clara only wanted a quiet life, a studio apartment above a closed-down bakery in Queen Anne, a second-hand blue couch, tea before bed, Sunday calls with her father, who lived 3 hours away and still asked if she was eating enough, a job with health insurance, and a manager who never remembered she had been the one to catch 3 fraud attempts in 1 quarter. She was good at being invisible. It had once felt like a weakness. That afternoon, it became the only reason she was still alive. After Matteo locked down the bank, everything moved fast. Too fast for Clara to process. His men copied the transaction data. The manager tried to protest until one of Matteo's lawyers arrived within 12 minutes, carrying a sealed authorization document that turned the manager into a silent statue. Vivian was escorted into a glass office. She did not cry. Women like Vivian did not waste tears on rooms full of people. She sat with her ankles crossed, chin lifted, rage burning quietly under her skin. Matteo did not question her there. He watched her through the glass. Then he watched Clara. That was worse. Clara could feel his attention from across the bank. It was not the casual glance of a man attracted to a woman. It was the focused stillness of someone trying to decide if she was a threat, a witness, or a miracle he did not believe in. At 5, 4, 10, Shidoi. The police still had not been called. Clara knew better than to ask why. The world of men like Matteo De Luca had its own laws. Her shift should have ended at 5. Instead, she found herself sitting in the employee break room with her coat folded on her lap, while 2 of Matteo's bodyguards stood outside the door. Her manager had gone home pale and sweating after telling her she was on administrative leave pending internal review. Administrative leave. That was what banks called it when they were afraid of powerful clients and needed someone ordinary to absorb the consequences. Clara stared at the vending machine. A bag of pretzels hung half fallen in coil bees eaten. She wondered if that was what her life looked like now. Stuck. Visible. Waiting for someone to shake the machine. The door opened. Matteo entered alone. The break room shrank around him. He had removed his overcoat. Beneath it, his black suit fit with ruthless precision. No wedding ring. Though he was engaged, no visible weapon. Though Clara had no doubt he carried one. His shirt cuffs were fastened with dark metal links engraved with a crest she didn't recognize. He closed the door behind him. Clara stood too quickly. "I gave your attorney everything I saw." "I know." "Then why am I still here?" "Because the transfer wasn't only meant to kill me." Her fingers tightened around her coat. Matteo stepped closer, but not too close. He noticed fear the way other men noticed weather. There was a second target encoded in the split transaction, he said. Clara's mouth went dry. "Who?" His face became unreadable. "A child?" The word changed the air. Clara forgot, for half a second, to be afraid of him. "A child," she whispered. Matteo's jaw flexed once. "My nephew. 8 years old. Hidden. Protected. Supposed to be unknown." Clara sank back into the chair. The room blurred slightly at the edges. A death transfer. A mafia boss. A child in hiding. And she had touched all of it because she refused to click one button. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because whoever planned this knows he exists." He came closer now, slow enough that she could have moved away. "She didn't. And because after you flagged the transfer, someone tried to access your employee profile." Clara stared at him. "My profile. Address. Emergency contact. Payroll details." A cold wave rolled through her. Her apartment above the bakery. Her father's address. Everything. "I need to go home," she said. Standing. "No." The word was calm. "Final." Clara looked up at him. Anger cutting through fear. "You don't get to say no to me." For the first time, his eyes sharpened with something almost alive. Most people probably obeyed him before he finished speaking. Clara was not most people. She was terrified. Yes, but fear did not erase the fact that she had spent her whole life being handled. Dismissed. Corrected. Squeezed into smaller versions of herself because other people found her inconvenient. She would not be ordered around by a man who smelled like rain and danger. Matteo looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You rewrite." Clara blinked. He reached into his jacket and removed a phone. He placed it on the table between them. "There are 2 cars outside," he said. "One belongs to my people. The other has been circling the block for 11 minutes. You can walk out alone. I won't stop you, but you won't make it 6 blocks. Clara stared at the phone. A security feed appeared on the screen. Grainy black and white footage showed the street outside the bank. A dark sedan idled near the curb, its headlights off, though the rain had thickened. Her anger drained into dread. What do they want from me? To know what you saw? To know what you know? To decide whether you useful or disposable? Her voice dropped. And what am I to you? Matteo's gaze moved over her face. Not her body, not her uniform, but the expression she could not hide. A problem, he said. It should have offended her. It did. But beneath that cold answer was another truth. He had not lied to make her feel safe. Clara lifted her chin. Then solve me without owning me. The silence between them tightened. Something dark moved behind his eyes. Respect. Maybe, or warning. Pack your things, he said. You'll stay somewhere secure tonight. No. His expression stilled. Clara swallowed. I'll go somewhere safe, but not with you unless you tell me exactly what happened with that child. Matteo's voice lowered. That information is not yours. It became mine when your fiancé tried to use my bank terminal to pay for his murder. The room went quiet. Outside, someone's shoes passed in the hallway. Matteo looked at her like he was deciding whether to admire her courage or punish it. Then, slowly, he pulled out the chair across from her and sat. A mafia boss sat beneath fluorescent lights in a bank break room. Across from a plus-size teller in a navy vest with a name tag pinned crookedly over her heart. And for one strange second, it felt more intimate than a kiss. My sister, he said at last, was killed 3 years ago. Clara's anger softened despite herself. Matteo continued without looking away. She had a son, Leo. My family wanted him raised inside the organization. I refused. I put him into witness protection under another name. You hid him from your own people, from everyone. And Vivian knew. She wasn't supposed to. Clara heard the fracture beneath the calm. Small, controlled, buried deep, but real. She was going to kill both of you. Clara said, yes. Why? Because in 48 hours, I'm supposed to marry her. The words landed heavily. Clara looked toward the glass door, toward the hallway where Vivian had been taken. A marriage alliance, she said. Matteo's eyes narrowed slightly. You know more than most tellers. I read the financial pages. She paused. And people talk when they think the woman behind the counter is too ordinary to understand. His gaze lingered on her. That look again. Like she had become a door he had not noticed before. And now he wanted to know what was behind it. The wedding joins my family with the Sorrentos, he said. Her father has ports, judges, Ignon, men. I have distribution, security, political protection. Together, there's no war. And if you don't marry her, there's war. Clara exhaled. Rain rattled harder against the windows. Outside, the dark sedan still waited. So what happens now, she asked. Matteo rose. Now you disappear before my enemies. Learn how much I care that you're alive. The words struck too close. Not because they were romantic. They weren't. They were strategic, cold, practical. But Clara felt something beneath them anyway. A tension in his jaw, a restraint in his hands. A man who had just discovered betrayal, standing in the same room as the woman who uncovered it, and hated that he owed her something. I'm not disappearing, she said. His gaze darkened. You don't understand the danger. No, Clara said. Standing too. You don't understand mine. Men like you think danger begins when guns appear. For women like me, danger begins when powerful people decide we were easy to erase. Matteo went still. Clara's voice shook. But she kept going. I have rent, a job I probably just lost. A father who needs me. I don't have a family army. I don't have black SUVs. I have my name, my records, and the fact that I did the right thing when everyone wanted me to shut up. Matteo stepped close enough that the heat of him reached her. His voice dropped. Then let me protect the only honest thing that walked into my life today. Clara's breath caught. He seemed to realize what he had said the moment it left his mouth. His face closed again, but it was too late. She had heard it. Honest thing. Not woman. Not teller. Not witness. Thing. As if honesty itself had become so rare to him that he almost didn't recognize it, wearing a cheap bank uniform and tired eyes. The lights flickered. A boom cracked through the bank lobby. Not thunder. Gunfire hit the front glass. Clara flinched. Matteo moved faster than thought. 1 second she stood alone. The next he had pulled her behind him. His body between hers and the door as alarms screamed through the building. The break room window shattered inward. Clara cried out. Matteo's arm locked around her waist and dragged her down behind the vending machine. His body covered hers, heavy and warm. One hand braced beside her head. For a moment, all Clara could see was his face inches from hers. Calm, focused, terrifying. "Do exactly what I say," he said. This time, Clara did not argue. Outside the door, his men shouted. More shots, customers screaming. The bank's marble lobby became a battlefield of echoes and broken glass. Matteo looked down at her. His eyes moved over her face, checking for blood, injury, panic. His hand hovered near her cheek. He almost touched her, then stopped. That restraint did something dangerous to Clara's heart. A man with enough violence in him to terrify a city had stopped himself from touching her without permission. "Stay behind me," he said, and then he rose into the chaos. By midnight, Clara Bennett was in a penthouse above Seattle, wearing borrowed clothes that cost more than her monthly rent, and trying not to fall apart in front of the most dangerous man she had ever met. The safe house was not a house at all. It was a glass-walled fortress at the top of a private tower overlooking Elliott Bay. Rain silvered the windows. The city glittered below like scattered diamonds. Beautiful from a height, cruel up close. Black SUVs filled the underground garage. Men with earpieces guarded every hallway. Cameras watched every angle. Clara stood in the guest bathroom, staring at herself in the mirror. Her bank uniform was gone. Torn sleeve. Blood on the cuff, not hers. Matteo had said, as if that made it better. Someone named Rosa had brought her black leggings, an oversized cream sweater, and slippers softer than anything Clara owned. Without her vest and name tag, she looked less like the woman who balanced ledgers and more like someone who had wandered into a life that did not belong to her. Her cheeks were round. Her hair had fallen from its bun. Her eyes looked too large, too bruised by fear. She pressed both hands to the sink. "Do not cry. Not here. Not where he can see." A soft knock came at the door. Miss Bennett Rosa's voice. "Mr. DeLuca asks if you'll join him." Clara almost laughed. Asks. Even his request sounded like orders by translation. She opened the door. Rosa was in her late 50s, elegant in black, with silver hair pinned low and eyes that had seen more secrets than most confessionals. "You don't have to be afraid of me," Rosa said gently. Clara managed a tired smile. "That's what people say in horror movies." Rosa's mouth twitched. "Then be afraid. Just don't let it make your decisions for you." Clara followed her down a long hallway lined with dark art and soft amber lights. At the end, Matteo stood near the windows with a phone to his ear. He had changed into a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. Tattoos disappeared beneath the cuffs. Dark lines on skin that made him look less like a businessman and more like the thing men whispered he was. A cut marked his cheekbone. Clara remembered glass exploding. His body over hers, his hand stopping before it touched her face. He ended the call when she entered. "Are you hurt?" "No." "You lying." Her brows drew together. "Excuse me. You favor your left side." Clara glanced down, irritated that he had noticed. Her hip had slammed into the floor during the attack. "It's nothing. Rosa will bring ice." "I don't need ice." Matteo looked at Rosa. Rosa left to get ice. Clara crossed her arms. "That wasn't a suggestion." "Was it?" "No. You always get what you want. Usually. At least you honest about being unbearable." For half a second, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. That tiny near smile felt more dangerous than his anger. Matteo gestured toward the sitting area. A fire burned low beneath a stone mantel. On the coffee table sat the transfer documents, printed and arranged beside photographs of men Clara did not know. One photograph showed Vivian Sorrento outside a private marina, her white coat bright against the rain. Beside her stood a man with a scar across his mouth. Clara stopped. "That's the beneficiary," she said. Matteo's attention sharpened. "You recognize him?" "Not in person. From the banking alert. His company was tied to the flagged account." Matteo picked up the photo. "Elias Crow," he said. "Former military contractor. Now he kills for families who don't like getting their hands dirty." Clara shivered. "And Vivian hired him?" "Yes. To kill you and Leo." Matteo looked toward the window. The name softened something in the room. Even if Matteo did not. And Leo, a child hidden somewhere. Unaware that adults with perfect clothes and dead hearts had put a price on his life. "Where is he?" Clara asked. "Safe." "You sure?" Matteo's silence answered before he did. "I was," he said. The confession was quiet, nearly invisible. But Clara heard the guilt beneath it. A man like Matteo did not say he was afraid. He said he was, and let the past tense do the bleeding. Rosa returned with ice wrapped in a towel. Clara accepted it, embarrassed when Matteo watched, until she pressed it to her hip. "I'm not a hostage," Clara said. "No." "Then I need my phone." Matteo reached into his pocket and placed it on the table. Relief flickered through her. Then she saw the screen was dark. "It's been secured," he said. "You searched my phone. My people checked it for tracking software." "That wasn't permission. You were nearly killed because someone accessed your profile." "That still wasn't permission." Matteo's eyes hardened. "I won't apologize for keeping you alive. And I won't thank you for treating my life like property." The room went silent. Rosa disappeared without a sound. Clara immediately wished she had not said it with so much pain in her voice. Because Matteo noticed pain. His expression changed by a fraction. "Who treated you like property?" The question was too soft. Too close. Clara looked away. "That's none of your business." "It is if he comes near you." She gave a sharp laugh. "You don't get to threaten ghosts." "No," he said. "Only living men." Her throat tightened. There had been a man once. Not violent in ways that left marks people respected. He had been the subtler kind. The kind who corrected what she ate in public. Who called her beautiful only after telling her what she should change. Who held her wrist too hard during arguments. Then said she was too sensitive. Who once told her, while smiling, that women like her should be grateful for attention. Clara had left him 2 years ago, but some voices knew how to stay. Matteo stepped closer, then stopped, as if he had reached an invisible line. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "I wasn't going to." His gaze held hers. "Good." The answer confused her. Matteo looked back at the documents. People reveal too much when they want comfort. Comfort is expensive. What a lonely thing to believe. He turned. The firelight cut shadows across his face. "It has kept me alive." "Has it?" The question slipped out before Clara could stop it. For the first time, he had no immediate answer. Outside, thunder rolled over the bay. Matteo looked at her as if she had touched something hidden under his ribs. Then his phone rang. His face closed. He listened in silence. Clara watched the change come over him. The return of the king, the predator. The man who could order death without raising his voice. When he asked, "A pause," his eyes lifted to Clara. "No police," he said. "Bring him to the warehouse." He ended the call. Clara stood. "What happened?" "Your apartment was broken into 20 minutes ago." The ice slipped from her hand onto the rug. "My father." 2 men were sent to his house too. Her breath vanished. Matteo spoke before panic could swallow her. My people intercepted them. Your father is alive. Clara gripped the back of the couch. Alive. The word was too big, too bright, too fragile. She covered her mouth with one hand. Matteo moved toward her. She stepped back automatically. He stopped. The pain that crossed his face was so brief she almost missed it. Not wounded pride. Understanding. He knew what it meant to want to comfort someone and be the reason they feared touch. Call him, he said. Voice rougher. Clara grabbed the phone. Her father answered on the second ring. Breathless and confused. Telling her men had come to the house. Telling her strangers in black had saved him. Telling her he was scared, but safe. Clara held herself together until he said, Baby girl, are you all right? Then she cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just one broken sound she could not swallow. Matteo turned away and stood facing the windows while she spoke, giving her privacy in a room he owned. That, more than anything, unsettled her. When the call ended, Clara wiped her face with both hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. Matteo did not turn around. Never apologize for loving someone. The words were quiet, almost bitter. Clara looked at his reflection in the glass. Is that what happened to you? She asked. His reflection did not move. You loved someone, and it made you weak. His gaze met hers in the window. No, he said. I loved someone, and it made everyone else dangerous. The attack at Clara's apartment became a public scandal by morning. Harbor Crown Bank issued a statement about a security incident involving an employee and a private client. A local journalist leaked the words mafia, wire transfer, and assassination attempt before breakfast. By noon, Clara's name was online. Not everywhere, but enough. Enough for people to find old photos. Her employee profile, her high school yearbook, her apartment building, her father's town. Enough for strangers to decide whether she was a hero, a criminal, a mistress, a liar, or a gold digger based on one blurry image taken as Matteo's bodyguard rushed her into an SUV. The photo showed Matteo's hand at the small of her back, not touching fully, guiding, protecting, possessing. The internet did what it always did to women who stood too close to powerful men. It made her body the headline. Clara stood in Matteo's kitchen, reading comments on a tablet she should not have looked at. She's not his type. She probably made it up for attention. Bank teller fantasy gone wrong. Why would he protect her? That last one hurt more than the others. Because Clara wondered the same thing. Why would he? Across the kitchen, Matteo spoke quietly with an older man named Enzo, his consigliere. They discussed port shipments, Sorrento retaliation, police pressure, and something called the Meridian Ledger. Clara caught pieces. Enough to understand Vivian had disappeared. Enough to understand her father, Don Carlo Sorrento, denied everything. Enough to understand war had not been avoided. It had merely changed clothes. When Matteo ended the conversation, Clara set the tablet face down. You should stop reading, he said. You should stop controlling. I'm advising. You advise like a dictator. And you deflect when you re-hurt. Clara looked up sharply. He was leaning against the counter. Sleeves rolled. Coffee untouched beside him. The morning light made him look less mythical and more exhausted. The cut on his cheek had darkened. You don't know me well enough to say that, she said. No, he agreed. But I'm learning quickly. That sentence sat between them like a dangerous invitation. Clara hated the small part of her that warmed under his attention. She had spent years wanting people to see her as more than soft edges and polite smiles. Now Matteo DeLuca looked at her as if every flinch mattered. Every silence had meaning. Every act of courage was a clue. It felt intoxicating. It also felt unsafe. "You can study me like one of your enemies," she said. "You're not my enemy. I'm not yours at all." His eyes held hers. "Not yet." The words were almost nothing, but Clara's pulse betrayed her. Before she could answer, a small voice came from the doorway. "Uncle Teo." Matteo went completely still. Clara turned. A little boy stood barefoot in the hallway, wearing pajamas with planets on them, clutching a stuffed wolf by one ear. His dark curls were messy. His eyes were sleep-heavy and cautious. Leo, the hidden child, the second target. Clara's breath caught. Matteo's face changed in a way she was not prepared for. It did not soften fully. He was not that kind of man. But something inside him lowered its weapon. "What are you doing out of bed?" he asked. Leo looked at Clara. "Is she the bank lady?" Matteo's gaze flicked briefly to Clara. "Yes." Leo stepped into the kitchen. "Rosa said she saved us." Clara froze. Matteo's jaw tightened. "Rosa talks too much," he said. Leo ignored him and walked straight to Clara. Children had always undone her. Not because they were innocent in the simple way adults like to imagine, but because they noticed what mattered before the world taught them what to mock. Leo looked up at her. "Thank you," he said. Clara crouched slowly so they were closer to eye level. "You're welcome." He studied her face. "Are you scared?" Clara smiled faintly. "A little." "Me, too," he whispered. The honesty went straight through her. Before she could think better of it, she said, "Then we'll both be scared and careful." "That's allowed." Leo nodded solemnly. As if she had explained something important, Matteo watched from the counter. Unreadable. Leo looked back at him. "Can she have pancakes?" Clara blinked. Matteo stared at his nephew, then at Clara, then back at Leo. "It's 9 in the morning." Leo frowned. "That's when pancakes happen." For one surreal second, the kitchen of Seattle's most feared Mafia Boss became almost normal. Almost. Then Matteo's phone rang. His expression hardened before he answered. Clara saw it. The mask returning. He listened, then said, "Where?" A pause. His eyes changed. "I'm on my way." He hung up. Leo's small hand tightened around his stuffed wolf. "Is it bad?" the boy asked. Matteo crouched in front of him. His voice became controlled and gentle, in a way Clara felt more than heard. "You're going with Rosa to the lower level." "No arguments." Leo's eyes filled with fear, but he nodded. Matteo stood and looked at Clara. Vivian surfaced, and Clara's stomach dropped. "Where?" "At your bank." "Why would she go back?" "She didn't go for the transfer." His gaze darkened. "She went for your manager." By the time they reached Harbor Crown Bank, police barricades already lined the street. Matteo did not enter through the front. His convoy moved like a storm through back alleys and underground access roads until Clara found herself in a private elevator beneath the building with Matteo, Enzo, and 2 armed men. She should not have been there. Matteo had said exactly that. Clara had said if her manager was in danger because he knew what she knew. Then she was done being hidden like a package. They argued in the penthouse hallway while his men pretended not to listen. He told her no. She told him he could either take her with him or waste 10 minutes, locking her in a room she would escape from badly. For one terrifying moment, she thought he might actually lock her in. Instead, he stepped close enough to steal the air from her lungs. "You will stay behind me," he said. "I'm getting tired of that sentence." am getting tired of you risking your life. It's mine to risk. His eyes burned. Not while I'm breathing. The words struck both of them silent. They were too intimate, too possessive, too honest. Matteo looked away first. Now, in the elevator, Clara stood beside him, feeling that sentence repeat beneath her skin. Not while I'm breathing. The doors opened into the bank's executive floor. The lights were off. Emergency lamps painted the hallway red. Clara had never been up here before. Tellers stayed below. Executives lived above, closer to money and farther from consequence. A sound came from the conference room. A man crying. Matteo moved first. Clara followed, despite Enzo's hissed warning. Inside, her manager knelt on the floor with his hands bound behind him. His face was bruised. A tablet lay on the conference table. Vivian stood beside it in a black dress. No white coat now. No softness. No performance. Only the blade beneath the silk. Beside her stood Elias Crow, the hitman from the photo. Clara felt Matteo's body go dangerously still. Vivian smiled. There she is, she said. Seattle's bravest little teller. Matteo's voice was calm. Step away from him. Vivian laughed. Still giving orders after your own bank exposed you. My bank. She touched the tablet. Your accounts. Your codes. Your secret child. Your witness protection arrangement. All of it downloaded from this building. Thanks to a very nervous branch manager with weak passwords and weaker bones. The manager sobbed. I'm sorry, Clara. Clara's heart sank. Vivian glanced at her. You see, ordinary people always break. That's why I was so fascinated when you didn't. Elias Crow lifted his gun slightly. Matteo's men aimed theirs. The room became a held breath. Vivian looked at Matteo. You were supposed to die cleanly. Before the wedding, tragic assassination. The Sorrentos would mourn. I would inherit your voting shares through the marriage contract already signed in escrow. My father would take your ports. Your nephew would vanish before anyone knew he mattered. Clara felt sick. Matteo's expression remained cold. But she could see the fury in his stillness. You signed nothing, he said. Vivian's smile widened. Your lawyer did. Enzo stiffened. Matteo did not look at him. That was how Clara knew the betrayal had landed. A new wound. Silent, internal. Vivian enjoyed it. Oh. Enzo didn't know, she said sweetly. But your legal counsel, Mr. Harlan, he has expensive habits and a daughter at Yale. Men are so easy to buy when they pretend they're honorable. Clara saw Matteo's hand flex once at his side. Not fear. Restraint. Vivian turned to Clara. But then you saw the code. Her voice sharpened. You. Nobody in polyester. A woman men like Matteo walk past without seeing. You ruined a decade of planning because you couldn't mind your place. Clara's face burned. Then Matteo moved. Not toward Vivian. Toward Clara. He stepped in front of her, blocking Vivian's view like Clara was something sacred being insulted in a church. She was the only person in that building who knew her place, he said, between murder and approval. Vivian's smile cracked. Jealousy flashed there, sudden and bright. Oh, she whispered. That's what this is. Matteo's face did not change, but the air did. Vivian saw it. Clara saw it. Everyone in the room saw it. The Mafia Boss had placed his body between a bullet and a bank teller, and his fiancée understood before he did what it meant. Vivian tilted her head. Do you love her already? Clara's heart stopped. Matteo said nothing. That silence was worse than denial. Elias Crow's phone buzzed. He glanced down. His mouth tightened. Police are moving in. Vivienne's eyes flashed with irritation. She grabbed the tablet. Then we finish later. She lifted the gun from the table and aimed it at Clara. Matteo reacted instantly. He shoved Clara behind him as the shot cracked through the room. Glass exploded. Men shouted. The conference room became chaos. Clara hit the carpet hard. Matteo went down beside her. Not wounded, just covering her as bullets tore through the windows and walls. His hand wrapped around the back of her head, pressing her against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady, impossible. Outside the storm of gunfire, Vivienne escaped through a side door with Elias Crow. Matteo lifted his head. His eyes were murderous. Stay here, he ordered. Clara grabbed his sleeve before he could rise. Don't go after her alone. He looked down at her hand on him. Something passed through his face. Shock. Maybe. Or hunger. Or the terrible ache of being asked to stay when every instinct told him to chase blood. She shot at you, he said. She wanted you to chase her. She missed. No, Clara whispered. She aimed where she knew you to stand. Matteo froze. The truth unfolded between them. Vivienne had not fired at Clara because Clara mattered. She had fired at Clara because Matteo would move in front of her. Because his protection had become predictable. Because Clara Bennett, somehow, had become his weakness. Matteo stared at Clara. For the first time since she met him, he looked afraid. Not of bullets. Of himself. Then Enzo shouted from the hallway. Matteo. The moment shattered. But Matteo did not pull away immediately. His hand remained at the back of Clara's head, fingers buried gently in her hair, holding her like the world might take her if he let go. Then he released her, and Clara felt the absence everywhere. The safe house moved that night. The penthouse was no longer secure, not after Vivienne proved she could access bank records, legal documents, and Matteo's internal circle. Clara, Leo, Rosa, Enzo, and half a dozen guards were taken under cover of rain to a property outside the city, where the trees grew thick and the sound of the bay disappeared behind miles of wet forest. The house was not luxurious in the obvious way. No marble floors, no chandeliers, no glass walls. It was old stone and cedar, hidden at the end of a private road, with iron gates and cameras disguised in the trees. Inside, the rooms were warm but guarded. Bookshelves, fireplaces, heavy curtains, a kitchen that smelled faintly of cinnamon because Rosa insisted fear was easier to survive after eating. Clara should have felt safer. Instead, she felt trapped inside the center of a war she did not understand. That night, she could not sleep. She found herself in the library after midnight, wrapped in a blanket, staring at rain sliding down the windows. Somewhere upstairs, Leo slept with 2 guards outside his door. Somewhere beyond the trees, Vivienne planned her next move. And somewhere inside the house, Matteo DeLuca was becoming harder to hate. That was the worst part. Fear would have been simple. Attraction would have been foolish. But recognizable, what Clara felt was more dangerous. She saw the way Matteo checked every lock himself, the way he spoke to Leo without raising his voice, the way he listened when Clara explained banking systems, never interrupting, never treating her like she was too ordinary to understand his world, the way he looked at her when she forgot to be guarded, as if he wanted to come closer, as if he would rather cut off his own hand. The library door opened. Matteo stood there. Of course, he wore black again, but without the suit jacket. His hair was damp, as if he had been outside in the rain. A faint bruise shadowed his temple. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. I don't sleep much. Another lonely survival strategy. He entered the room, closing the door behind him. Yuri angry with me. Clara looked back at the rain. I am angry with everyone. That's fair. She let out a tired breath. I had a life 2 days ago. I know. No. You don't too. She turned toward him. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I went to work. I paid bills. I bought clearance flowers from the grocery store because they made my apartment feel less sad. I had boring routines. I had peace. Matteo's expression shifted at the word peace, as if it were a language he had never learned. And now, he asked, now people online are calling me your mistress. My apartment is destroyed. My job is gone. My father is guarded by strangers. A child I barely know may die because I noticed a code. Her voice broke despite her effort. And the woman who tried to murder you hates me because you stepped in front of me. Matteo came closer. Vivian hated you before that. Clara gave him a look. He paused. That was not comforting. No, I'm not good at comforting. I noticed. Another almost smile. Then silence. Not empty silence. Full silence. The kind that asked questions neither of them was ready to answer. Matteo stopped a few feet away. I can get you a new identity, he said. Money. A place far from here. Your father, too. You could be gone by morning. Clara stared at him. Is that what you want? His face closed. What I want is irrelevant. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can afford. Clara stood, the blanket falling from her shoulders. Stop doing that. What? Acting like you were noble because you refuse to say what you feel. His eyes darkened. Careful. No. She stepped toward him. You don't scare me enough tonight. You should be terrified of me every night. I am. Her voice softened. That's the problem. Matteo went still. Clara felt the confession burn through her. I'm afraid of you, she whispered. And I trust you. I don't know what to do with that. His control cracked by a fraction. He looked at her mouth. Just once. The room changed. The rain seemed louder. The fire lower. The space between them suddenly too small. Matteo lifted his hand. Clara's breath caught. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. Again. Always that almost touch. Tell me to stop, he said. You haven't done anything. His eyes met hers. I'm thinking about it. The honesty sent heat through her body and fear through her heart. This was not the easy wanting she had known before. Not the kind that came with compliments and pressure and soft manipulation. This was a man holding himself back with visible effort. Because some part of him understood that wanting did not grant permission, Clara should have stepped away. Instead, she whispered, What are you thinking? His voice lowered. That if I touch you once, Clara Bennett, I won't know how to stop wanting more. Her name in his mouth felt like a secret door opening. She closed her eyes. For a second, she wanted to be reckless. Wanted to let danger become warmth. Wanted to forget transfer codes and bullets and women in white coats. Then a floorboard creaked outside. Matteo moved instantly, pulling her behind him. The door opened before he reached it. Leo stood there, eyes wide. Stuffed wolf clutched to his chest. I had a nightmare, he whispered. Everything romantic vanished. Something deeper replaced it. Clara stepped around Matteo. Leo looked embarrassed, as if nightmares were a failure. Clara crouched and held out a hand. Want to sit by the fire for a minute? He nodded. Matteo watched as Clara led the boy to the couch and tucked the blanket around his shoulders. Leo leaned against her side without hesitation. Matteo's face changed. not soft, wrecked. As if seeing Clara with the child he had hidden from the world hurt him in a place no enemy had ever reached. Leo fell asleep within 10 minutes. Clara looked up and found Matteo staring at them. What she whispered. He shook his head, but his eyes said too much. Want, fear, longing, a future he had no right to imagine. Clara looked away first, because she had begun imagining it too. Vivienne's next move came through the news. The following morning, every major Seattle outlet received a leaked recording. In it, Matteo DeLuca's legal counsel appeared to confirm that Clara Bennett had been paid to fabricate the death transfer accusation in order to help Matteo break his engagement without penalty. The recording was fake, but polished, convincing, cruel. By noon, Don Carlos Sorrento gave a statement from the steps of a cathedral. His daughter, he said, had been betrayed by a violent man and an unstable bank employee obsessed with him. Unstable. That word followed Clara into the afternoon. On television, a former co-worker said she had always been quiet. Too quiet. Strange. Maybe. Lonely. Another said Clara had seemed overly invested in private clients. Clara watched from the safe house living room. Numb. As strangers built a version of her that could be destroyed in public without guilt. Matteo turned off the television. Clara stared at the black screen. I didn't do anything wrong, she said. Her voice sounded small even to herself. I know. It doesn't matter. Matteo stood beside the fireplace, his face unreadable. It matters to me. She laughed once. Bitter and broken. That doesn't help me. His eyes flickered. She regretted it immediately, but not enough to take it back, because it was true. And his protection had saved her life. It had also made her a target. His attention warmed her. It also burned everything she knew. Matteo looked toward Enzo. Where is Harlan? Gone. Enzo said. Private jet out of Boeing Field this morning. We tracked the flight to Vancouver, then lost him. Matteo's voice dropped. Find him. Clara stood. Your lawyer has the original files. Doesn't he? Both men looked at her. The marriage contract, she said. The escrow documents. Whatever Vivienne needs to claim power if you die. If he forged your signature or moved your shares, there will be a financial trail. Enzo looked skeptical. We've searched his office. I'm not talking about his office. I'm talking about where he hid the transaction metadata. Matteo watched her closely. Clara crossed the room and opened her laptop. The one Matteo's team had brought from her damaged apartment. Lawyers are arrogant, but financial systems are boring. Boring things keep records powerful people forget exist. For the next 2 hours, Clara worked. Not as a hostage. Not as a scandal. Not as a woman people mocked online. As herself, she traced escrow references through legal billing codes, offshore account timing, and a tiny administrative fee charged to a Sorrento-owned shell company 3 months earlier. Matteo stood behind her. Silent. Enzo paced. Rosa brought coffee. Leo sat nearby drawing spaceships, occasionally asking if bad guys use banks too. They use everything, Clara told him gently. At Patrusciase. She found it. A hidden retainer account tied to Harlan, Vivienne, and Elias Crow. The account had one scheduled payment still pending. Clara enlarged the screen. Matteo leaned closer. The payment was set for midnight. Beneficiary E. Crow. Memo field. Final confirmation. Witness. Anne. Child. Clara's blood ran cold. Witness. Enzo said. His eyes moved to Clara. Child. Leo. Matteo's silence was terrifying. Then he looked at Clara, and for the first time, she saw it openly. Not suspicion, not fascination. Need. He needed her mind, her courage, her ability to see patterns hidden under ordinary numbers, and he hated that needing her put her closer to danger. We can trace the payment location when it activates, Clara said. No, Matteo said immediately. Yes. No. She stood. This is how we find Crow. This is how they bait you. This is how we stop them from reaching Leo. At the sound of his name, Leo looked up from his drawing. Matteo's expression tightened. Clara lowered her voice. You can protect him by only reacting. Matteo stepped closer. And I won't protect him by using you as bait. I'm already bait. His jaw clenched. Clara touched his sleeve before she could lose courage. A simple touch. Barely anything. Matteo looked down at her hand as if it were both wound and blessing. I'm choosing this, she said. Don't take that from me too. His gaze lifted to hers. The room faded around them. Enzo stopped pacing. Rosa watched from the kitchen doorway. Matteo's voice was low enough that only Clara heard it. Every choice around me costs something. Then let me decide what I can afford. He stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded once. Not agreement, surrender. The trap was set at an underground club beneath Pioneer Square. A place called the Saint Room. Officially, it was a private jazz lounge with velvet booths and a members-only entrance. Unofficially, it was neutral territory where men with enemies drank beside men with worse enemies. And no one raised a weapon unless they wanted to vanish into Elliott Bay. Clara entered beside Matteo at 1:13:4 p.m., wearing a deep green dress Rosa had chosen, and Clara had almost refused. It was not revealing, not flashy, but it fit her in a way that made her uncomfortable with her own reflection. The fabric skimmed her curves instead of hiding them. Her hair fell in loose waves around her face. For once, she did not look like someone trying to take up less space. Matteo noticed. He noticed too much. When she walked down the stairs at the safe house, his conversation stopped mid-sentence. His gaze moved over her slowly, not like the men who had made her feel measured and found wanting, but like he was memorizing the parts of her she had spent years apologizing for. You look, he began. Clara lifted a brow, defensive before he could finish. What? His voice lowered. Impossible to ignore. The words stayed with her all the way to the club. Now, in the dim amber light of the Saint Room, men turned to look. Not at Matteo. At her, Clara felt their curiosity, their judgment, their surprise. She lifted her chin anyway. Matteo placed a hand at the small of her back. This time, he did touch. Lightly, a question disguised as protection. Clara did not move away. His fingers flexed once. The club seemed to notice. A rumor began before they even reached the booth. Matteo DeLuca had brought the bank teller. Good. That was the point. At midnight, the scheduled payment activated. Clara sat beside Matteo in a private booth. Laptop hidden beneath the table, tracing the routing path through 3 accounts and a false charity. Enzo monitored communications. Matteo watched the room. You reshaking, he said without looking at her. I'm in an underground mafia club tracking a hitman payment in a dress I don't own. You're doing well. That was not a denial. No. She exhaled. You re-terrible at reassurance. You re-alive. Bare minimum. Matteo. His mouth almost curved. The sound of her saying his name changed the air. She saw it happen. His eyes moved to her face. Possessive warmth flashed there and disappeared so quickly, she wondered if she imagined it. Then a woman's voice came from the edge of the booth. How sweet. Vivian stood there and read. Not white this time. Red like warning. Like scandal. Like a woman done pretending to be innocent. The club quieted. Matteo did not rise. Vivienne. She smiled at Clara. You clean up better than expected. Clara's hands stilled on the keyboard. Matteo's voice became soft. Careful. Vivian laughed. There it is. That tone. I waited 3 years to hear it used for me. Matteo said nothing. Vivian looked at him. And for a second, Clara saw beneath the cruelty. Not love. No. Something uglier. Possession wounded by rejection. You were always cold. Vivian said. I accepted that. I even admired it. Then some bank teller turns a screen around. And suddenly you were standing in front of bullets. Matteo's expression remained flat. But Clara felt his hand under the table, resting near hers. Not touching. Close. Vivian saw that too. Her eyes sharpened. You think he'll save you? She asked Clara. He doesn't save women. He ruins them beautifully. Clara's throat tightened. Matteo began to stand. Clara placed her hand over his. He stopped. She looked at Vivian. No. Clara said softly. You ruin people and call it strategy. There's a difference. The club went utterly silent. Vivian stared. Then she smiled. There she is. Clara's laptop pinged beneath the table. Trace complete. Her pulse jumped. The final payment location appeared on screen. Not across town. Not hidden in Tacoma. Inside the club. Clara looked up. Across the room. Elias Crow stood near the stage. One hand inside his jacket. Eyes fixed not on Matteo, but on the exit behind them. Where Rosa was supposed to bring Leo through a secure lower passage if evacuation became necessary, Clara's blood turned to ice. Matteo. She whispered. He saw her face and understood before she finished. Crow moved. So did Matteo. The club erupted. Music stopped. Men shouted. Chairs overturned. Matteo pulled Clara from the booth and shoved her behind a marble column as his guards spread around him. Gunfire cracked through velvet and glass. Vivian vanished into the chaos. Clara crouched behind the column. Heart slamming. Laptop clutched to her chest. Across the room. Leo appeared in the lower hallway with Rosa. Eyes wide with terror. Crow turned toward the boy. Clara did not think. She ran. Matteo shouted her name. A sound so raw, it tore through the gunfire. Clara reached Leo as Crow raised his weapon. She threw herself over the child, pulling him down behind a fallen table. The shot struck the wall above them. Leo screamed. Clara held him tight. Stay down. Stay with me. Crow came closer. Then Matteo hit him like a storm. Not elegant. Not cinematic. Brutal. Fast. A violence born not of pride, but terror. Clara covered Leo's eyes. She heard enough. When it was over, Matteo stood over Crow, breathing hard. His shirt torn at the shoulder. Blood on his knuckles, but not much. Not like the movies. Not glamorous. Real. Controlled. Shaking with the effort not to become worse than the man at his feet. His gaze snapped to Clara. Everything in him changed. He crossed the space and dropped to his knees beside her. Are you hit? No. Clara. I'm not hit. His hands moved over her arms, her shoulders, stopping before they became too desperate. Then he saw Leo clinging to her. The boy was sobbing into her dress. Matteo's face broke. Just for a second. Enough. Clara reached for him. This time, he did not stop her. Her hand touched his cheek. The entire burning, broken club disappeared. Matteo closed his eyes. One breath. One surrender. Then he pressed his forehead to hers, careful of Leo between them, and whispered so low only she could hear, "I can lose you." Clara's eyes filled. "You barely have me." His eyes opened. Dark, devastated, certain. "I know." After the Saint Room, there was no hiding the war. By dawn, 3 Sorrento warehouses were shut down by federal agents acting on anonymous evidence. 2 judges connected to Don Carlo recused themselves from ongoing cases. A Port Authority director resigned before breakfast. Matteo moved pieces Clara did not understand, using information she had uncovered and power he had spent years sharpening. But Vivian still had one card left. Harlan, the lawyer. At noon, a message arrived at the safe house. A video. Harlan sat tied to a chair in an abandoned church, face bloodless with fear. Behind him, Vivian stood beneath a broken stained glass window, holding a folder. The original marriage escrow, Matteo said. Watching the video once, his voice was flat, but Clara knew him better now. Flat meant fury had gone underground. In the video, Vivian smiled. Midnight. Matteo, come alone with the boy, or every document goes to the press, the families, and federal prosecutors. Your secret heir becomes public. Your bank teller becomes conspiracy. Your nephew becomes a target forever. Leo. Clara's hand curled into a fist. The video ended. No one spoke. Then Matteo turned to Enzo. Prepare the cars. Clara stepped forward. No. Every head turned. Matteo's eyes were dangerous. Not now. Yes. Now. She walked closer. You are not taking Leo. I'm not. Then why prepare the cars? Because Vivian expects me to break rules for him. And you will. Matteo looked at her. For him? Yes. Clara understood. That was the problem with love in Matteo's world. It did not make people gentle. It made them willing to walk into fire. She's using the same pattern. Clara said. She aims at what you protect and makes you stand where she wants. Matteo said nothing. So we don't play her scene. Clara continued. We build our own. Enzo frowned. With what? Clara looked at the frozen video screen. The church. The glass. The folder in Vivian's hand. Metadata. Enzo blinked. Clara moved to the laptop. She sent the video too fast. If she recorded it herself, there may be location data. Device ID. Upload path. But more than that, look at the folder. Matteo leaned in. Clara enlarged the image. On the folder tab was a bank stamp. Not Harbor Crown. A private archive vault. Those documents aren't originals, Clara said. They recertified copies. The real originals are still in custody somewhere. Matteo's eyes sharpened. Where? Clara zoomed in further. Reading the tiny partial mark near the stamp edge. Harbor Crown doesn't use that seal anymore, she said. But one of its acquired banks did. Meridian Trust. Enzo swore softly. The Meridian Ledger. Matteo looked at him. Enzo's face hardened. Old family archive. Financial sins going back 30 years. If Vivienne found it, she didn't find all of it, Clara said. She found enough to bluff. Matteo's gaze moved to her. Pride flickered there. It warmed her more than it should have. Then his face changed. No, he said. Clara frowned. I didn't say anything. You're rethinking you can access the archive. I can. No. We've covered this. Clara. The sound of her name was a warning and a plea. She softened, but only slightly. Matteo. I know banking systems. I know the vault protocols. If we get the real documents before midnight, Vivian loses leverage. And if you recaught, then you rescue me dramatically and look terrifying. Isn't that your specialty? Enzo coughed once like he was hiding a laugh. Matteo did not find it funny. He stepped close, lowering his voice so the room disappeared again. You think because I control myself around you? I am controlled. Clara's breath caught. I am not, he said. I am one bad second from burning this city down because you keep putting yourself between me and a bullet. Her heart pounded. Then maybe stop making bullets the only language your world understands. His eyes flashed. For 1 second. They stood too close. Anger and fear and longing tangled so tightly, Clara could not tell them apart. Then Leo's voice came from the stairs. Is Clara leaving? They both turned. The boy stood there in daylight, small and terrified. Clara crossed to him immediately. I'm going to help, she said gently. That's different. Leo looked at Matteo. People who help us get hurt. The words pierced the room. Matteo's face tightened. Clara crouched. Sometimes, she said, but sometimes people help each other, so nobody has to be scared alone. Leo looked at her for a long time. Then he wrapped his arms around her neck. Clara hugged him tightly, closing her eyes. When she opened them, Matteo was watching. No mask could hide what was in his face now. It was not love spoken. It was love becoming dangerous. The Meridian Archive sat beneath an old bank building downtown, sealed behind biometric doors and private guards who believed they were protecting dusty estate records. Not the future of a mafia dynasty. Clara entered through the front at 718 p.m. with forged credentials, a navy coat, and Matteo walking beside her as her legal escort. He hated the plan. That much was obvious. He hated the fake names, the public lobby, the fact that Clara had insisted he could not bring more than 2 men without alerting the vault manager. Most of all, he hated the way other men looked at her when she walked in, wearing confidence like armor. It should not have pleased her. It did. At the reception desk, the vault manager barely glanced at Matteo before focusing on Clara. Miss Whitaker, he said, using her fake name. We weren't expecting Meridian retrievals tonight. Clara smiled politely. The kind of smile women used when men underestimated them. That's why it's called an emergency audit. The manager hesitated. Matteo stood silently beside her. Not threatening. Existing. That was enough. Within minutes, they were led downstairs into a climate-controlled archive where old money slept in locked drawers. Clara found the Meridian ledger in a fireproof cabinet. Her hands shook when she opened it. Inside were not just marriage contracts. There were trust documents, blackmail payments, hidden inheritance clauses, and one sealed file labeled DeLuca Minor Protection Transfer. Leo's file. Matteo saw it. His face went still. Clara opened the folder carefully. The truth inside was worse than they expected. Leo was not just Matteo's nephew. Legally, he was Matteo's heir. His sister had signed control of a hidden DeLuca trust to him before her death. A trust large enough to shift power away from any spouse Matteo married. That was why Vivian needed the child dead. Not just hidden, dead. Clara covered her mouth. Matteo stood so still he looked carved from grief. She knew. He said, Vivian, my sister. His voice was hollow. She knew someone in the family would come for him. Clara read the final page. There was a handwritten note attached. For Matteo. If I don't survive. Clara looked at him. He did not reach for it. Maybe he couldn't. So she held it out. His fingers brushed hers as he took the paper. He read in silence. Clara watched the man everyone feared break without making a sound. His sister's words were short. Trust no crown. Trust the child. And if you ever find someone who protects him without wanting power, don't let your fear destroy her. Matteo folded the letter slowly. His eyes lifted to Clara. The air between them changed forever. Before either could speak, alarms began blaring. The vault doors started to close. The manager's voice sounded over the intercom. Strained and apologetic. I'm sorry. Mr. DeLuca. She has my family. Vivienne. Matteo grabbed Clara's hand. They ran. Behind them, steel doors slammed one by one. Emergency lights flashed red across rows of old sins. Matteo's men fought somewhere above, their shouts muffled by concrete and metal. Clara clutched the ledger to her chest. At the stairwell, 2 armed men appeared. Matteo pushed Clara behind a cabinet and moved before she could scream. The fight was brief and brutal. Then he was back, breathing hard, one hand extended. Come. She took his hand. They reached the lobby as glass shattered above them. Rain blew through broken windows. Outside, black SUVs collided with Sorrento cars beneath flashing city lights. In the chaos, Clara saw Vivienne across the street, red umbrella, white smile, and beside her, held by 2 men, was Rosa. Clara stopped. Matteo followed her gaze. His face turned lethal. Vivienne lifted her phone. A message appeared on Matteo's screen. Midnight. Church. Bring Clara too. Clara's blood chilled. Matteo looked at her. No, he said before she spoke. But Clara already understood. Vivienne no longer only wanted Leo. She wanted the woman Matteo had chosen to protect in front of everyone. She wanted proof that Matteo DeLuca could still be made to kneel. And maybe, deep down, she wanted to see whether Clara Bennett was worth a war. The church stood abandoned on the edge of the industrial waterfront, half swallowed by fog and rain. Atunci 56 proprime. Matteo entered through the front doors alone. At least, that was what Vivienne believed. Clara watched from the choir loft above, heart pounding so hard she thought the old wood beneath her feet might hear it. Enzo crouched beside her with a silent weapon. 2 of Matteo's men moved through the shadows below. Outside, federal agents waited with evidence. Clara had sent anonymously through 3 legal channels Matteo did not ask about. For once, they were not playing only by mafia rules. They were playing by hers too. Vivienne stood at the altar in a black gown. As if attending a funeral she had personally arranged, Rosa knelt beside the broken steps. Bound but alive. Harlan sat nearby, shaking. Don Carlo Sorrento stood in the shadows, older and heavier than his daughter. His face marked by the calm arrogance of men who had never been held accountable by anyone they considered beneath them. Matteo walked down the center aisle. No overcoat. No visible fear. Rainwater dripped from his black hair. Stained glass cast fractured colors across his face. He looked like a man entering his own damnation by choice. Vivienne smiled. You came. You asked. I asked for the boy. You don't get children. Her smile thinned. Still pretending you have mercy. No, Matteo said. Just limits. Don Carlos stepped forward. Limits are for men with less to lose. Matteo's gaze did not leave Vivienne. I lost my sister. I almost lost my nephew. You aimed a gun at Clara. His voice lowered. You've taken all the mercy I had. From the choir loft, Clara felt those words move through her. Vivienna's eyes glittered. There it is again. Clara, Clara, Clara. She laughed, but it shook. Do you know how insulting it is? I was bred for your world, trained for it, offered to you like a queen, and you look at her like she's the first honest thing you've ever touched. Matteo said nothing. Vivienne turned suddenly, staring up into the shadows. Come down, Clara. Clara froze. Matteo's head snapped up. Vivienne smiled wider. Please. Did you think I wouldn't count heartbeats? Enzo muttered a curse. Clara's fear surged. But then she looked at Rosa, kneeling near the altar. At Harlan, who held the key to proving Vivienne's fraud. At Matteo, who had walked into the church knowing it might become his grave. Clara stood. Matteo's voice cut through the church. Do not. She looked down at him. For once, his command sounded less like dominance and more like terror. Clara descended the narrow stairs. Every step echoed. When she reached the aisle, Matteo moved toward her. Vivienne lifted her gun. Stop. He stopped. Clara walked to him anyway, standing at his side. His voice was barely audible. You should have stayed hidden. So should Leo, she whispered. But hiding doesn't end this. His eyes burned into hers. You don't have to be brave. I'm not, she said. I'm just done letting cruel people decide who matters. Vivienne's face twisted. Don Carlo laughed. Touching. Clara turned to him. Her hands shook, but her voice did not. You built this entire war because a little boy inherited money you thought belonged to you. Don Carlo's smile faded. Vivienne's gaze sharpened. Clara continued. The Meridian Ledger is already with federal prosecutors. So is the death transfer, the escrow fraud, the payment, to Crow, the forged marriage contract. All of it. Harlan made a small sound. Vivienne went pale. Matteo stared at Clara. He had not known she sent everything. That was the look she had been afraid of. Not anger. Awe. Don Carlo reached inside his coat. Everything happened at once. Matteo shoved Clara behind him. Vivienne screamed. Gunfire exploded through the church. The stained glass window above the altar shattered, raining colored fragments like broken saints. Enzo fired from the loft. Matteo's men moved from the shadows. Federal agents stormed through side doors. Clara fell hard against a pew. Vivienne grabbed Rosa, dragging her toward the sacristy door. Clara saw the knife in Vivienne's hand. She ran, not because she was fearless, because Rosa had called her child when she thought Clara was asleep, because Leo loved pancakes, because Matteo's sister had written about someone who protected without wanting power. Clara caught Vivienne at the sacristy door. Grabbing her arm, Vivienne spun, striking Clara across the face. Pain flashed white. You pathetic girl, Vivienne hissed. You think he'll love you when this is over. Men like Matteo don't marry bank tellers. They hide them, use them, mourn them if they were pretty enough dead. Clara staggered. The words hit old wounds. Women like you should be grateful. Look at her. Not his type. For one heartbeat, Clara almost believed her. Then she saw Matteo fighting through the chaos toward her. Panic breaking his perfect control. Not for a dynasty. Not for power. For hair. Clara lifted her chin. You re wrong, she whispered. Vivienne lunged. Matteo reached them first. He caught Vivienne's wrist before the blade touched Clara. The sound she made was half rage, half fear. Matteo looked at her with absolute coldness. You lost, he said. For once, Vivienne had no performance left. Only hatred. You'll destroy everything for her. Matteo's gaze flicked to Clara. Blood marked her lip. Rain blew through shattered glass. Her dress was torn. Her eyes were terrified but unbroken. When he looked back at Vivian, his voice was calm. No, he said. She reminded me what was worth saving. Federal agents took Vivian screaming. Don Carlo went silently, which somehow seemed worse. Harlan collapsed into confession before anyone asked. Rosa cried when Clara untied her. And Matteo stood in the ruined church, surrounded by broken glass and old sins, looking at Clara as if every wall inside him had finally burned down. He came to her slowly, not like a king, not like a predator, like a man approaching the only person who could still refuse him. His hand lifted. This time, he touched her cheek. So gently it hurt. Clara closed her eyes. His thumb brushed beneath the bruise, forming near her lip. I tried not to need you, he said. Her eyes open. His voice was low, raw, almost unfamiliar. I tried to send you away. I tried to make fear stronger than wanting. I tried to remember every reason a woman like you should never stand beside a man like me. Clara's throat tightened, and his gaze held hers, and every reason sounded like cowardice. The church seemed to fall silent around them. Clara whispered, I'm still afraid of your world. You should be. I won't belong to it. I know. I won't be hidden. No. I won't become something you own. Matteo's hand stilled against her face. Then he lowered his forehead to hers. Clara Bennett. He said, I would burn every crown I have before I put one chain on you. The words broke something open inside her. Not surrender. Trust. She reached up and touched his wrist. Then don't ask me to save you again. His mouth almost curved. What should I ask? Clara looked at the broken altar, the shattered glass, the agents moving through the ruins, Rosa alive, Leo safe miles away, the night finally ending. Then she looked back at him. Ask me to stay because I want to. For the first time since she met him, Matteo De Luca smiled. Small, dangerous, devastating. Stay, he said. Clara's heart trembled. Because. His eyes darkened with emotion he no longer tried to hide. Because I want you in every room where truth matters. Because my nephew trusts you more than he trusts armed men. Because you saw the ugliest parts of my life and still chose what was right. Because when you look at me, I remember I am not only the violence people fear. He paused. His voice dropped. And because I am already yours in ways I do not know how to survive. Clara felt tears rise. Outside, sirens painted the fog red and blue. Inside, in the ruins of a church built for vows, she kissed him. It was not gentle at first. Nothing between them had been gentle. It was rain, fear, survival, restraint finally breaking. Matteo's hand slid to the back of her head, careful and reverent. Clara gripped his shirt like she needed proof he was real. He kissed her like a man who had stood at the edge of losing everything and found her there, refusing to disappear. Then he stopped first, breathing hard, forehead against hers, still giving her the choice. That was when Clara knew she was lost. Not trapped, lost like a person who had wandered out of one life and into another, more dangerous one, carrying her own name like a lantern. 3 months later, Harbor Crown Bank reopened its downtown branch after extensive renovations. Clara did not return to Window 6. The bank offered her a settlement large enough to keep her silent. She took a different deal. A public apology. Full restoration of her professional record. a foundation funded in her name to protect financial whistleblowers and vulnerable witnesses, and a private banking compliance division that answered to her, not to executives who folded when dangerous men entered the lobby. The first time she walked back into the building, reporters crowded outside. Someone shouted, "Ms. Bennett, are you and Matteo DeLuca engaged?" Clara paused beneath the entrance awning. Rain fell softly around her. Black SUVs lined the curb, but no one touched her, guided her, or answered for her. Matteo stood a few steps behind, dressed in black, silent as a storm. Clara looked at the cameras. "No," she said. The reporters erupted. Behind her, Matteo's face remained calm. Only Clara saw his eyebrow lift. She smiled slightly. "Mr. DeLuca is still learning how to ask nicely." A ripple of stunned laughter moved through the crowd. Matteo stepped closer, lowering his voice near her ear. "Is that your official statement?" "For now. You enjoy making me suffer. I enjoy accurate records." His gaze warmed, dangerously. "Privately, then record this accurately." He murmured, "I am not patient." Clara turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. "Yes, you are." He looked at her mouth, only for a second, then back to her eyes. "For you," he said. The cameras caught none of the softness. Good. Some things were allowed to belong only to them. Inside the bank, employees stood as Clara entered. Not because she was feared, because she had refused. Because she had turned a screen toward a powerful man and told the truth when silence would have been easier. Her new office overlooked the same lobby where Vivian once humiliated her. On the wall, Clara hung no awards, only one framed document. A copy of the transfer denial, declined at 317 p.m. Reason, suspicious activity. Under it, in her own handwriting, she had added, reason, someone had to say no. That evening, she returned to Matteo's house, not the penthouse. Not the emergency safe house, but the cedar and stone home in the trees. Leo met her at the door with pancake batter on his shirt. "Uncle Teo burned dinner," he announced. Matteo appeared behind him. "It was not dinner. It was black," Leo said. Clara laughed. A real laugh, one she had not heard from herself in months. Rosa came from the kitchen, rolling her eyes. "He tried to make pancakes at night because someone told this child, pancakes are a symbol of emotional stability." Clara looked at Matteo. He gave her a flat stare. "You said that." "I said no such thing." Leo whispered loudly. "He missed you." Matteo closed his eyes briefly. Clara's heart filled so suddenly, she had to look down. Later, after Leo fell asleep on the couch, and Rosa pretended not to notice Matteo carrying him upstairs with the stuffed wolf tucked under one arm, Clara stepped onto the back terrace. The rain had stopped. The forest smelled clean and dark. Far away, Seattle glowed beyond the trees. Matteo joined her without speaking. For a while, they stood side by side. No gunfire, no scandal, no transfer code blinking like a death sentence. Only quiet. Finally, Matteo placed a small velvet box on the railing. Clara stared at it. "Matteo, it's not a ring." She looked suspicious. His mouth almost curved. "Open it." Inside was a key. Simple. Silver. Unadorned. Clara looked up. "To this house," she asked. "To every door I have." Her throat tightened. He stood facing the forest. Not her. As if giving her space, even in confession. "You asked not to be hidden," he said. "You asked not to be owned." You asked me to let you stay because you wanted to. He turned then. His eyes were dark, steady, stripped of every lie. This is me asking badly. But honestly, Clara picked up the key. It was warm from the velvet. You reoffering me access to your whole life. No, he said. I'm offering you the power to leave any room I bring you into. That was when Clara understood. For Matteo De Luca, love would never be soft in the ordinary way. It would arrive guarded, intense, sometimes frightening. It would carry shadows. It would stand between her and bullets before it knew how to say please. But it would learn. For her, it would learn. Clara closed the box. Then she slipped the key into her coat pocket. Matteo watched the movement like a man watching a verdict. She stepped closer. I'm keeping my apartment, she said. Of course. And my job, I know. And my name. His voice lowered. Especially your name. She smiled. He reached for her slowly, giving her every chance to refuse. She didn't. His hands settled at her waist. Her body remembered the first time he had pulled her behind him in the bank. The chaos. The fear. The man who had been both danger and shield. Now there was no chaos. Only choice. Clara rested her hand against his chest. His heart beat steady beneath her palm. You know, she whispered, the first time you walked into my bank, I thought you were the most terrifying man I'd ever seen. Matteo brushed his thumb along her waist. And now, she looked up at him. Rain clung to the railing behind them. The dark forest stretched wide. Inside, Leo slept safely. Somewhere in the city. Enemies, whispered Matteo De Luca's name, with fear. But here, he looked at Clara as if she had become the one place in the world where he could finally lower his weapon. Now, she said, I think you're still terrifying. His eyes warmed. Clara rose onto her toes and kissed him softly. But not to me. Matteo's hand tightened just slightly. Possessive, but careful. Reverent, but hungry. He kissed her under the quiet sky like a vow he had no priest for. Like a promise made in the only language he had ever trusted action. Restraint. Devotion. And when he pulled back, his forehead resting against hers, he whispered the words that would follow Clara into every dangerous room. Every whispered scandal. Every night when the city tried to remind her what kind of man he was. You are not my weakness, Matteo said. Clara touched his cheek. His eyes closed. You are the reason I choose what kind of powerful man I become. Behind them, the house glowed warm through the windows. Ahead of them, Seattle glittered like a kingdom, still full of enemies. Clara Bennett had once believed she was ordinary because the world had looked at her and decided not to see. But Matteo De Luca had seen her turn a screen toward death and refused to look away. Now the city would remember her name. Not as the teller who got caught in a Mafia Boss war. Not as the woman mocked by his fiancée. Not as the soft-voiced girl behind window 6. But as the woman who said no to murder, protected a child, brought down a dynasty, and taught the most feared man in Seattle that love was not possession. It was choosing, again and again, to protect without destroying. And somewhere in the dark below, as black SUVs waited beneath the trees and rain began again over the city, Matteo De Luca held her like the world had finally given him something too honest to lose. Clara stayed. Not because she was trapped. Not because she was dazzled by danger. Not because a mafia boss had chosen her. She stayed because this time, when power reached for her, it opened its hand. And for the first time in her life, Clara Bennett did not feel small. She felt seen. She felt wanted. She felt dangerous too. The kind of dangerous no empire could buy. The kind that begins when an ordinary woman tells the truth and a powerful man falls to his knees before it.